And welcome everybody to the Huddle, KGUN9's streaming sports talk show. We come to you every single week, every Tuesday at this time. I'm KGUN9 Sports Director Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pat, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Another Tuesday and a time of the year where we have a lot going on, so I love it.
All right. I think we'll start with the transfer portal. It's been crazy the last few days, people coming and going. We talked about Jedd Fisch winning the offseason, the last couple of years, or last year at least. And we don't really know how this is going to play out. So far, U of A not off to a great start, right? He teased on social media, teased on Twitter, something big is happening. But right now, Arizona lost Dorian Singer and Jackson Turner, both a little bit of a surprise in that the leading receiver in the Pac-12 and the leading tackler from last year both go and are entering the transfer portal. Two players Arizona's not going to have next year.
Yeah, you see the two guys that are going. Dorian Singer, on face value, maybe it wasn't unexpected. It was a little bit of a surprise, but going off of what we saw when he and Jayden de Laura had their shoving match on the sidelines, and they said, oh, it was all all forgotten and they made up.
It never is.
It never is. It never is. And when the season started and we saw how prolific of a receiving core that the Wildcats had, and that includes at tight end as well. So when you've got basically four guys that are really upper echelon type of receivers or tight ends, and they're all battling to catch that football, somebody's not going to be happy. Somebody's not going to get the ball enough. And in this case, I guess maybe it's Dorian Singer.
No, I don't think it was a situation of him not getting the ball enough. I think it's a situation of there's some type of chemistry issue with him and the quarterback. There was talk of maybe who was responsible for de Laura's interceptions. Maybe he felt like he was the fall guy for that, running the wrong route, and he's like, no way. So I don't think it was that. He got thrown tons of balls this year. I actually have an issue with that, Pat. They should have targeted Teteroa McMillan.
Well, I agree with that.
Year. But that was going to be smallish. I know he's got to put on a little bit of muscle in the offseason, but they need to make him more like a DeAndre Hopkins type of receiver, where he is the focal point of the offense, not somebody who they're throwing to once in a while, which they did this year during his freshman year.
And that's where I was going, Jason. It's not that there wasn't enough balls for him this year. Clearly there were. The problem is that they're going to have to find a way to get the balls to a Teteroa McMillan a little bit more. And that means that Dorian Singer might not get as many footballs. But there was clearly an underlying issue there that he and Jayden de Laura had, and it was just enough. And here's the problem I have with the transfer portal, Jason. You used to be able to transfer whenever you wanted, right? But you'd have to sit out a year. And so guys didn't do it very often unless they were really unhappy or the situation just wasn't what they thought it was going to be. Now it's like, well, I had a blow up with my quarterback, I'm going to transfer, because that's really all it takes. And I think that's the issue I have with the transfer portal, is how easy it is for guys to transfer that first time. And there used to be some accountability. It used to be, you got to live with your decision for a little while. You got to try to make it work. Now it's, well, the end of the season's up, I can go somewhere else. So that's what happens a lot.
Yeah, that might be a debate for another day. Obviously, coaches can leave whenever they want to, and some people now, believe players should have the same opportunity. So Singer already been offered by Penn State, Arkansas, Utah, ASU, Miami, and who else? But yes, Coach Prime, who we're going to get to next, Deion Sanders coming to Colorado. Tons of excitement. Can he do at Colorado what he did at Jackson State? Not going to be easy to do in the Pac-12. What you did in the SWAC, that's for sure. But as he said, he's bringing luggage, and the luggage is Louis. And if you don't know what that means, which took me a second, it's Louis Vuitton, meaning his son was going to play quarterback, and about several other guys as well.
Yeah. And also, don't forget, what was it Sunday that he had the player meeting with all the players? And he basically said, computer, get on it, get in the transfer portal. He basically said that to the Colorado Buffaloes, meaning,
he's trying to clear up spots. Yep.
1-11, most of you guys aren't going to be playing for me next year. And so, maybe it is time for a lot of those guys to get in the transfer portal. But obviously, he's working the transfer portal to his benefit as well. He's going to try to get the Dorian Singers of the college football world to transfer there, and Coach Prime It's we'll see. It's going to be entertaining, Jason. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
I don't know how much homework he can do on each guy. He might not have the chance to do, a ton of homework on each player, but because of the transfer portal, I think he's somebody who can win right away, or at least be competitive right away. It used to be like a, 3, 4, 5 year build, which is what it is still going to be at some places. But I think he's going to find guys right away. He already flipped a wide receiver who was from his hometown of Fort Myers, who was going to Texas A&M. That wide receiver is already going to Colorado. He's going to attract a lot of players. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be good for the Pac-12.
It'll certainly turn that program around. I think you're right. I think they can win. I don't know how, you and I and Kyler Diggs were actually talking yesterday about this, about whether or not, you can get a lot of great players to come in. Will they gel? Now, Deion Sanders can get guys to believe, I'm sure. They'll probably gel fairly quickly. Will that result in anything more than 4 or 5 wins? Maybe not the first year, but I think you're right. It won't take as long to get Colorado to be competitive again. But you know what, Jason, they really haven't been that competitive since the old, Big 12, Big 8 days. You really have to go back to the Big 8 when Colorado and Nebraska were the powerhouses in that conference, and along with Oklahoma, and they were Colorado was somebody. They really haven't been anybody in football for a long time.
Oh, he talked about that when he met with the team. He said it's been 2 decades.
Yep.
And his message was, I'm coming. And I'm bringing luggage. Boy, those statistics of his son at quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, boy, 70% completion percentage, and the touchdowns and interceptions. It's a lot easier when you got guys open and you're not being pressured as much. But those are some statistics that his son has, who's going to be the quarterback of Colorado. So going to be a lot of fun to see. And Arizona's got its work cut out for it in the offseason, rebuilding this defense, because they got a lot of guys who have left now in the portal, not just Jackson Turner, who he showed, but, Keon Bars. And You can make the case, well, these guys weren't that good. I mean, over 500 yards a game they were allowing, but they've got to bring some people in here. They had Jacob Manu and some of the other young guys. Prysock, the defensive back, are going to improve and going to be better. But Fish has got to do in the portal, in recruiting, to the defense this offseason what he did to the offense last season, because this defense took a step back. And if you took the 2021 offense, if you took the 2022 offense and the 2021 defense, you could have had like an 8-4 team this year. Now, everybody's overlooking the fact that the defense took a step backward because the team went from 1 win to 5 wins, but that's not going to be okay next year. This defense has got to improve, and they got to find players right now in the transfer portal for this U of A defense. And I know they were offered an edge rusher already. I just saw on Twitter. I forget who it is now, but they're trying.
Yeah, and they've got to make a splash, though, Jason. I know it's only day 2, and there's still a couple of weeks left of this window of the transfer portal. But I'm waiting for that big splash. You and I were sitting checking Twitter all the time with Jed Fish yesterday, because it was supposed to be some big announcement, and then we find out that Singer leaves, but then later on we find out that Jacob Cowing's staying. Well, was that the big announcement that Jed Fish had?
I can't believe that is.
I hope not.
I know you got to re-recruit your players, but I doubt it.
Yeah, but we'll see. I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for that splash, and it's got to come on the defensive side of the football, and there cannot be any more defections on the offensive side of the football.
Well, they had a recruit today decommit and is looking at visiting Oregon this weekend. And it said Pac-12 school in the headline, and so I thought maybe it was Colorado. Read the article, and it's Oregon. So, got to find players, and got to find players now, especially on the defense. All Pac-12 team came out today. Arizona had nobody on the first team all Pac-12, and only Dorian Singer, who's now gone, was the only player who made second team all Pac-12.
Which is shocking to me. I don't know how Jacob Cowing doesn't make second team at least.
And receivers who didn't have the stats, maybe they felt they weren't targeted as much, and that's why. But nobody, I believe nobody honorable mention either. And on the freshman team, McMillan wasn't even on the freshman team. That's nuts. He should be freshman All-American. He didn't have a great game. I think the ASU game may have been the only game he didn't have any receptions. I have to go back and check. He didn't have a great game in the Territorial Cup. I don't think he was thrown to enough. He impacts the game.
Not only that, Jason, he's the one guy that even Jaden Delora can see him at all times. Even when he's under, you should be able to see him. He's big enough, right? And yet the only time we saw them throw the football to him I shouldn't say the only time. A lot of times when they were in the red zone, the only time we saw them where they were trying to do fades and things like that, and sometimes it worked, a lot of times it didn't. You've got to get that kind of playmaker needs the ball a lot more than he's getting.
I mean, that's my hot button issue. I said it before the season. I said, Pat, I don't want to be here talking mid-season about how he's not getting the ball enough. He's got to be the focal point of the offense. And if you're saying the reason why was because they felt he was too small, bulk up now. You know, because he looks like DeAndre Hopkins, but he doesn't look like DeAndre Hopkins, right?
Yeah.
He looks like him, and like he's got his talent, and that's why he was a 5-star guy. But he's a little skinny.
Remind me, is he 6'4"?
Something like that.
Am I making that? I thought he was 6'4". So you can't.
Yes,
you can go in the weight room. You can put on a little weight. You can put on a little strength, but you can't, grow, another 4 inches on the other receiver. So,
and his hands are fantastic.
He's there.
Yeah.
He's gonna be open. I watched those games. He was open a lot and never even got looked at when in those schemes. You know who was open a lot too, especially in the second part of the season when he didn't get the ball enough, was Cowing. Cowing didn't get the ball a lot either in the some of those big games towards the end of the season. But he's a different receiver. That's fine. Those guys complement each other. You got a slot receiver and you got a big receiver playing on the outside. So they can get the balls to those guys. There's enough balls to go around for those two now that Singer's gone.
Yeah, they got Kevin Green and a couple of other guys. One guy who was hurt this past year, who could really make a big impact next year is Speedy Luke. I mean, you see his talent when he gets the ball.
Right.
So we'll check it hour by hour. Things have a way of changing fast. So maybe Arizona could get some players here, make us feel a little bit better going.
Well, give me a couple of guys that you say, oh my gosh, that's going to make the defense better immediately. those are the kind of guys that we got last year during the offseason on the offensive side of things. Jaden DeLaura, Tedero McMillan. I mean, the Cowing. I mean, these are the guys that came last year at this time. So let's find these guys on the defensive side.
Yeah, they've never had a scary pass rusher. In my 11 years covering the team.
No, you have to go back.
A guy,
and the
guys who they've had have been overrated. To be honest with you, they really have been. All right, so that's Arizona football. Time to get some players here in the transfer portal. Also, Arizona basketball brought back a little bit to life last week. We kind of saw it coming a little bit. I kind of hinted at it. With some of the things you saw about their 3-point defense and a little bit of softness. And, Utah was waiting for him and took it to him. And then you think, okay, well, they're going to really take it out on a winless Cal team and beat them by 40. And Cal hung with them. So what were the issues? Tommy Lloyd was saying in the post-game news conference, the bench has got to be better and he's got to make the defense better.
The defense has got to be better. And also, Jason, we saw them go on those first 3 games of the year, even the 3 games in Maui, they were shooting the ball very well. And, sometimes you go through streaky parts of the season where you're hitting everything. And then all of a sudden, these last 2 games from 3-point, they are really struggling. And that just happens. We've seen that with Kirk Risa. We've seen it with a number of guys in the last 2 years under Tommy Lloyd. They'll find their shooting stroke and get those 3-point. Had they hit a couple more threes, all of a sudden that game isn't even really as close as it got, single digits in the last few minutes, but then they pulled away again. So I think it's not a real big concern, but there are things that you'd like to see them do better. And yes, Tommy Lloyd's right. They've got to play better defensively. It's a team that was built on playing good defense and then transitioning. And when you don't play good defense, you don't get a lot of transition buckets. So then the team does what Cal and Utah did the game before that, is then they run an offense very slow, methodical, take up a lot of their shot clock, and you don't play very good defense. You either foul at the end of that possession or you let them score at the end of that possession. And that's how teams stay in it. That's how games are close. And that's what happened against Cal. And that's definitely what happened against Utah. They actually found themselves trailing big at times.
I'm looking at Pelle Larsson's stats here. So I didn't realize he only scored 7 points a game last year. I would, as the Pac-12 Sixth Man of the Year, I would have guessed he would have scored more than 7.2 points a game. He's scoring 9.6 as a starter right now, only averaging 6 more minutes. The one glaring stat, though, is his 3-point field goal percentage, which was 36% last year, and that's 27% this year. Any thoughts on why Pell Larson is struggling from the three-point line as much as he is?
I'll tell you why Pell Larson's struggling just a little bit overall, Jason. His three-pointer probably has a little something to factor into this. He's getting into foul trouble early because he is their best defender. He oftentimes has to be put on one of the best guards or small forwards that the other team has. And so what's happening is he's built his reputation on being a really great defensive player, and Tommy Lloyd depends on him so much so. And then I think it gets to that whole, well, I got to stop this guy, and boom, I get a foul. I get a ticky-tack foul. All of a sudden now, 6 minutes into the game, I have 2 fouls. So they sit me down for a little while. Then I come back in, and early in the second, I get my 3rd foul. Then they sit me back down for a while. That's happened the last few games. I really think that he's kind of the problem is his own success has put him in a role that sometimes you get fouls called against you, and then you get your minutes limited. You would expect him as a starter to have a little bit more minutes than he has. I think that foul trouble, or at least, getting a couple fouls early gets him on the bench.
The one guy who really came to play at Utah is Oumar Ballo. Looking at his numbers right now, 19.1 points a game, 9 rebounds, and that's in 26 and a half minutes for Oumar Ballo. He is averaging 77% field goal percentage. Just an incredible improvement from somebody who was a project a year and a half ago and is now dominating at times underneath, which is what we were told, but almost kind of didn't believe based on what we saw until Christian Koloko got hurt and he was forced to get more minutes last year.
Right. No. We didn't really think of him being this kind of player. You hope that he could be a guy that would start once Christian Koloko left. We weren't sure that Christian Koloko was going to leave after last year, but he did for obvious reasons. But he's stepped up his game. He's gone from a guy that earned a lot of minutes last year to a guy that's probably the best center we've seen so far of any of the teams we've played. And the stats prove out that he's one of the better centers right now. And this big guy, despite the fact that he doesn't jump out of the gym like some guys do, or like Christian Koloko could do, he still gets his fair share of blocks. And
He's a different type of player.
Is he good down low with his footwork now? And
That's
that little baby hook that he does, it's impressive what he's been able to do. And and I'm not saying he's not a good defender. He's a good defender. He's a great offensive player right now.
4 blocks. That block was fantastic.
After he was getting whatever the player from Cal was shooting right over him for a while. Then he finally figured out it late in that game, and that was a key block for sure.
No, he's poised on offense. The way he waited for the double team didn't come. So he went and scored. So the team is going to play Indiana. Arizona, by the way, has never played Indiana ever. I couldn't believe that. With all the times they've been to the NCAA tournament and some of these other matchups, the two programs have never played. So they're going to play in Las Vegas on Saturday.
I saw a stat too, Jason. Of all the great basketball powerhouse programs in the country, you got North Carolina, you got Duke, and you go down the line. Right now, Indiana and Arizona all-time wins are 10th and 11th in the country. Indiana's 10th, Arizona's 11th, and they're only separated by like 7 wins. And it's very odd that, Arizona's played the other 9 in front of Indiana, multiple times. They've never played Indiana. Just an oddity of the way things go. Bobby Knight and Lute Olson did not like each other. That they were never going to play a home and home, just as a non-conference. And so it was really up to the tournament selection or how the brackets, and they just never ever met.
Okay, so I believe though that this game was scheduled after Sean Miller left, because this would have been Sean Miller against Archie Miller.
Archie Miller, right?
Yeah, had this.
So they wouldn't have done that either.
Probably. They wouldn't have coached against each other.
Yeah, they wouldn't have done that.
So I believe this matchup was done afterwards, and I'm not even sure it was done by the two schools. This could have been done by the event.
It's this class. What's it? The Vegas, whatever it is.
I forget the name. By the way, there's also a women's event, and 3 of the teams have backed out because of, gosh, I forget the incident now. It was one of those things where you looked at the headline, and I can't read every single article. Something to do with a strip joint in Vegas. I'm not kidding you. Three of the women's teams have backed out of the women's event.
Okay, I did not know
Yeah.
that. On the men's side, though, I'm pretty locked in on
I'll
the
try to Google it.
Arizona game.
I'll try to Google it real fast. I'm
All
not
right.
trying to throw you for a loop or make something up. Women's teams back out of Vegas tournament. I'll see what comes up. I wasn't dreaming this, Pat. Okay, here we go. Dayton, Purdue, and Texas A&M are out of the Las Vegas Holiday Hoops Classic at South Point Arena. They've withdrawn as part of a continuing fallout from a similar event at a strip resort over Thanksgiving weekend where safety concerns were raised. Dayton, Purdue, Texas A&M, blah, 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 agreed to conditions. We're all about giving the opportunity. Las Vegas Invitational experienced many problems, including not having medical personnel on site, which resulted in Auburn freshman Carissa Richardson. So it doesn't have to do with a strip club. I don't know what it has to do. Anyway, Arizona's going to play Indiana.
Arizona's going.
That's all we need to know, right? So those
it.
two teams are playing. Yeah. So I think that this was done by the event. I don't know that these two coaches did this home and home.
Gotcha. So Indiana, they've had an interesting season. It'll be great to see them. Of course, they had the big win over North Carolina at the.
They're the preseason favorite in the Big Ten.
Yes, and then they just lost to Rutgers the other night, unranked Rutgers, and they lost 63-48. That was back on Saturday.
They scored 48 points against Rutgers.
Yes. So I don't know what was going on in that game, but
they were looking ahead to Arizona. That's what's going on.
That's it. Anyway, Indiana. So they dropped from 10th down to whatever they are now, like Indiana's 14th.
Yeah.
So
hey, listen, you're not going to go through the season unscathed.
No,
if they beat Indiana and they've got another team after that,
and remember
you'll take where they're at right now. I'd almost rather have them lose to a team like Utah than a powerhouse team.
And see, Indiana
from a mental point of view.
Indiana beats North Carolina in an ACC Big Ten Challenge game.
Although North Carolina's
the 30th
in a row now.
Yeah. And then the next game they go to Rutgers and lose. So it's not unlike playing in Maui and then having to have a week off and then try to take on Utah. You got to get your legs back. It's just you get a big win. Sometimes you're just kind of set up. Sometimes it's a struggle. It's an uphill battle, and it was.
Yeah. All right. So women's team, by the way, has not been tested. We can touch on them a little bit. They haven't been tested. I think they're 7-0, ranked 12th, home against Kansas Thursday. I don't believe Kansas is ranked, but at least it's a Power 5 team. I don't think they've played one Power 5 team. Jade LaVille got off to a slow start this year. She was only averaging like 11 or so points a game, and she scored 27 the other day at New Mexico. So she's back on track. Yep. But they've got plenty of players who can score, so it's not like if she doesn't score, they have an issue. The player who was really surprised has been Esmery Martinez. She's been very good.
She has been good.
And
Jason, they have 5 players in double figures.
Yeah.
And one of them's not even a starter, and that's that Kaylin Gilbert, who's been terrific.
It's really a bunch of seniors and a bunch of freshmen, Right. And I don't, they've got a couple players who are in between. I don't mean to count anybody out, but they've got seniors and Kate Reese,
fifth year. There's some of them are graduate 5th year seniors. Yeah.
And then you've got the promising freshmen. Kaylin Gilbert's look good. Paris Clark, McDonald's All-American. So was Maya Najee.
Najee's looking good. Yeah.
Of course, the players coming in from next year. I don't know if Adia Barnes has been asked about this yet. They have their weekly news conference tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I'm super interested in why Helena Pueyo was named team captain and not Kate Reese. You would think, by the way, Sam Thomas was captain the last 4 or 5 years. I think for 5 years, by the way. So I just kind of assumed that maybe Kate Reese was going to be named captain just by her presence and how many years she's been here and how fired up she is on the court. I didn't really see that from Helena Pueyo. I'm not on the inside or know that, but I think that might be an interesting question for Adia Barnes if she hasn't been asked that yet. Why Helena Pueyo was named team captain?
Well, it may speak not anything against Kate Reese. It may speak to Helena Pueyo and what the other players think of her, and maybe it speaks to what the coaching staff also thinks of her. Maybe she's the person that everybody turns to and really.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, so we don't know. We just be speculating. But you're right. It is interesting. that she's the team captain. But, you know, they are playing well. We don't know how well. They play an undefeated Kansas, who's not ranked yet. Just they're receiving votes. They play them, Thursday night at McHale?
I think
So
it's a 6:30 game.
Yeah, you got an undefeated team that probably has a lot of confidence going up against an Arizona team that hasn't been tested. Maybe this will be the time they get tested. We'll see.
That'll need to happen. So
Yes.
yeah. All right. So that kind of wraps it up here. We'll be back here next Tuesday, which would be the 13th.
Yes.
And I think we've got Ryan Hansen to talk.
Ryan Hansen from Arizona basketball, color analyst, who was on the trip to Maui. He'll be calling the game against Indiana as well. So we'll get his perspective on how that trip went, the hangover afterwards, and then how they fare against Indiana on Saturday.
It's a whole new trip with Las Vegas here. So all right, so that's what's happening, and I got a couple more before the holidays. I think one or two more, before the holidays.
Yeah, we'll take a little break then after that.
Yeah. So along with everybody else. So
Yes.
that's what's up. So, all right, Pat. Well, this has been the Huddle on K-Gun 9's. Oh wait, we missed a comment here. Oh no, this is not a comment we want to read. It was a spam comment.
Pretty much looks like spam to me.
Okay, I forgot.
Jason, you've made it. You've made it. Your show's made it when people are trying to spam to try to get you to advertise on your show.
Are you sure that means you've made it?
I do. Actually, I do. It means that we're getting enough people watching.
By the way, I'm skipping the comment. Nobody go to what they're doing if they're doing spam. I just read the last line, Pat, and I'm chuckling here because it says something about dogehype.com. Good Lord, man. That combines the tech bubble from the 90s with the .com with the crypto bubble with the whole Doge thing. So I wouldn't recommend anybody do that. I don't know what that is. So anyway, on that note, we'll end it. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. This has been the Huddle on K-Gun 9. We'll see you right back here at this time next week. Have a good week, everybody.